Hi, welcome to another edition of Q&A with CNA. And on today's episode, we're going to learn about CNA's Athletics Strong for Mental Health initiative. CNA's Mission Advancement Director, Dan Mucci, and Alliance High School's Athletic Director, Tim Goodman, are going to discuss the topic and point to where some coaches and parents might find some resources. So thank you both for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And before we get started, let's get to know our guests a little bit. We've had Dan on here many times, but Tim Goodman, we haven't had you quite as many times. So can you tell our CNA audience where you grew up, how you got your start journey to the athletic director here at ACS?
Yeah, so I grew up in Copley, Ohio, which is just outside of Akron. And then from there went to Walsh University, where I played football, studied education, became a math teacher. I started off at North Canton Hoover High School. I was there for 9 years and then was fortunate enough to get the head football job here at Alliance High School. So I was just the head football coach and a math teacher here for a couple of years and then became the athletic director shortly after.
Great.
And now we're here.
Awesome. And Dan, can you refresh us on your journey to your position
Sure.
at CNA?
So I grew up in Plain Township. I actually graduated from Glen Oak High School, then came over to the University of Mount Union. So I spent some time in Alliance for 4 years, enjoyed it. Became a journalist when I left college, did some software sales, and then I ended up at CNA.
Yeah. And journalism skills translate, and there's not as many jobs in journalism anymore.
There are not.
We can all see that. So Dan, can you describe for our viewers the concept behind Athletes Strong for Mental Health and where that initiative started?
Sure. So thinking back about 5 years ago to the pandemic, many high school athletes lost either their whole senior season or even when they transitioned back to school the following year, a lot of kids only had like 2 parents or 2 people allowed to come watch them. And there were still a lot of those protective measures in place. And then around that time, down at Ohio State University, Harry Miller, an offensive lineman, I believe that's right, Tim
Yes,
can
sir.
correct me if it's not. He was your dream athlete, really. He had a 4.0 valedictorian in high school, did mission trips, just looked like the perfect, athlete, role model, volunteer, talk to kids. But he told the story that ever since he was in 8th grade, he always thought he might commit suicide, like that was in the back of his mind. So when he was struggling, he went and talked to Coach Ryan Day. Ryan got him the help he needed. Harry ended up taking a medical leave of absence, didn't do his senior year, but the school rallied behind him. And then for us, it kind of resonated, like if we have this kid who's a 4.0, just as the perfect, looks like the perfect person, what's happening with some of our high school kids that are not 4.0 students, do not
Right.
volunteer? And so that's really how the initiative came to be.
Right, okay. Could you also tell us what resources are available for coaches, athletes, and parents around that subject and how they can get access to those resources?
Yeah, so again, going back to Ohio State, we connected with a sports psychologist named Dr. Steve Grafe. He was a Lake High School graduate. So he ended up doing a series of YouTube videos with us, a podcast. We provided tip sheets, just on a lot of different topics, like how do athletes navigate social media? How, if you're a 2-sport athlete, like how do you navigate between coaches? What's your senior year look like? But with each of these topics, we actually broke it down as a coaches segment, an athlete segment, and a parent segment.
Oh, nice.
And so you can actually find all of those resources either on our website or on our YouTube channel.
Nice, that sounds really helpful. Tim, how has Alliance City Schools utilized some of these resources?
Yeah, so CNA sends us a monthly newsletter, if you will, with those tips, and then we take that and we forward it on to our head coaches, and we ask that they share those with their athletes and in their program. We've had some discussions on those. We're fortunate enough to meet every other week with the coaches that are employed here at the high school, and we kind of talk about them a little bit more, how we can utilize them within our programs, and then we kind of filter it down from there.
Yeah, that's helpful. Have coaches provided any feedback on how it's been when they're implementing these, or if it's helped them to recognize any of the mental health concerns?
Yeah, definitely. I think sometimes it's fortunate enough, like Dan alluded to, sometimes they're timely emails that, in a situation that a coach might be dealing with. He talked about the social media one, that's something we're always trying to educate our student athletes on, and trying to hit the nail on the head. Sometimes our coaches aren't quite sure how to address it. They take some information from the newsletter, they share it with their athletes, and I've gotten positive feedback from them on that.
Great. And are the resources being used at the middle school level?
Yeah, so we encourage all our head coaches that oversee our middle school programs to filter that down to their middle school coaches, so they share those newsletters and ideas and stuff with them as well.
Oh, great. So then they have consistent messaging all the way up
Exactly,
through.
yeah.
And what is some of the feedback that you've gotten at CNA about this resource?
Yeah, so it's really great to hear what Tim said. Tim kind of was in our transition between your former athletic director, Mike Schott, and Tim, so we had to bring Tim up to speed, but he's done a great job. But a lot of our athletic directors really say what Tim do. Some of them focus strictly on the coaches and then have the coaches send that message down, so they are having those weekly meetings or monthly meetings, however schools are structured.
Yeah.
One of the schools, Jackson, did a whole day on just their coaches, kind of like a staff day just for their coaches, brought in some speakers and stuff. And then others have, so out at Marlington, their former AD, Steve Miller, he used to bring the athletes all in at the beginning of a sports season. So either at the beginning of fall, winter, or spring, pick a couple topics, show it, and then just have a discussion.
Nice.
So what we ultimately found out is a lot what Tim said, like the topics ended up being timely, or coach or students would see something in those videos, and they would go up to the coach and say, hey, I really think I'm struggling, I need help. And then the coach could forward them on to either one of our school-based counselors or just a counselor in the school system.
There's a lot of stuff on the internet. It's not all reliable or consistent, and so it's nice to have one resource. The past couple of years, Dan, CNA has chosen athletes to be mental health champions. Why is that so important?
So in May, we do our student mental health champions for all 17 school districts. So we took it down to the athletic side. And the message that's created there is played on a lot of video boards in high school stadiums. And that's just reminding the parents and the spectators to be good sports. We're out here doing our best. We train to play, but we want to have fun. So we're going to make mistakes. Hopefully it doesn't cost the game, but we're not perfect. So we don't want to hear you shouting at the head coach. We don't want to hear you yelling at the refs. We don't want to hear you downgrading a teammate, because we're all just doing our best and having fun. So last year, the whole Federal League came together and did it, and then Alliance, Marlington, Sandy Valley, Tesla, some other school districts used the same message but created a video with those schools. And I think it just resonates when it plays on the scoreboard. It just reminds the spectator when they're in there, these are high school athletes, they're not colleges, they're not pros. Perspective. And it's great. Alliance, I can play it at Mount Union's video board, because that's your home stadium, so that really works out well, and well attended, lots of people in the stands, so the message resonates out.
It kind of creates a focus at the beginning of a game for everyone, really. So Tim, as an athletic director and head coach, there's been a greater emphasis on well-being and for student athletes. As coach and AD, are coaches being trained on what to look for when hiring a new coach? Is that something that you're looking for, some of this background and knowledge?
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely important that they have previous knowledge on that, and even more so, the OHSAA has made it a requirement that they have to get a training and a certification in mental health now, and they have to renew that every 3 or 4 years. So not only is it something that we're looking for, but it's also required now by the state to make sure they have a background on that.
And that's been a push all over. Teachers all have to take something similar, and so I'm glad that everyone's getting that message. Dan, again, where can people access these resources, and where can they find them?
So of course you can go to our website, childandadolescent.org. It's under the resource tab, and it says Athlete Strong for Mental Health. And then if you're on our YouTube channel, you can just search Child and Adolescent.
Yeah, awesome, great resource. And anything else either of you would like to add before we close the show today?
We're just grateful for the work CNA does, and helps us utilize it and encourage our coaches to use it, so thank you.
Great, awesome.
Yeah, we're grateful for all the partnerships and the athletic directors providing feedback and using the resources to help everyone.
Great. Well, thank you both for joining us, and thank you for watching. This has been Q&A with CNA.